All right, I'm glad to be here. I want to thank Creative Writing, History, and Music for bringing us out and making this performance possible. And it sounds pretty good to me. You heard me pretty well in the back still, right? Everything's good? All right, good. I'll probably do 20, 25 minutes of kind of miscellaneous poetry, and then we're going to shift into the more themed poetry, where I'm going to perform with Genuine Brandish. I'll read the poems that the songs are based upon, then they'll sing the songs, and you'll be able to see that transformation from poem to song, really kind of live between us. It'll be a lot of fun. But I thought I might start, before we get into, it's actually kind of dark material, heavy material, World War II. So I thought I might start with some other kinds of voices, some other kinds of material. So I think I'm going to read a little bit from my book, The Golem of Los Angeles, which is a different kind of book. It has its darkness too. For example, this is one called Azusa Boulevard. A lot of my poems are sonnets or poems in form. About half of them are poems, free verse poems. This one's a sonnet, and it really had to do with when I first moved to Los Angeles. And it was one of those smoggy summers going into the fall where you couldn't see very far. I didn't know that there were mountains in Los Angeles for a good month. And I saw them on the map. I ended up driving out Azusa Boulevard until I was right in the foothills. I looked up and there were the mountains coming out to the smog. And that's sort of what this poem got inspired by. It's called Azusa Boulevard. I'm driving out the boulevard, past icons, orange planets floating over the gas stations, the Tiki Lounge, the Iron Sky, the convenience store where for a pack of cigarettes, $11 and a hat, the Pakistani clerk was shot last week. The city, like a void expanding through the towns of Lemonade, the lot of polished, marked down cars below the freeway, dark smog pushed against the hills, a fat man to the table, galaxies of dust, the low sky stained with nicotine and rust. Los Angeles. A billboard explains that life is harsh. Your tequila shouldn't be. Okay. And then a little bit of a shift. We can do somewhat sexy poems. It's okay? Yeah, it's all right? All right. So this is a poem called The 167th Psalm of Elvis. And it's set in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. It's for all the poker players in the room. You know, of course, Caesar's Palace is the Roman-themed casino, right? So there are statues of the Greek gods and so on. The 167th Psalm of Elvis. Blessed are the marble breasts of Venus, those ancient miracles, for they are upright and milk white, and they point above the heads of the crowd in the casino. Blessed are the crowds that play, and whose reflections sway in the polish of her eggshell eyes, for they circle like birds around the games, and they are beautiful and helpless. Bless the fast glances that handle the waitress. Bless her miniskirt toga and the flame gold scotch. And bless the gamblers who gaze at the stage. Remember also the dancer, and remember her dance, her long neck arched like a wild white goose, the tassels on her nipples that shoot like sparks. And bless the legs, and bless the breasts, for they are fruit and honey, and they are generous to the eyes. Have mercy on my wallet, the dollars I punch into the slots, and grace the wheels swapping clubs and hearts. Mercy on me too, as I stumble as if in a hashish haze, watching the reels spin away, for I'm a blown fuse, and I need someone to bless me before it's too late. Honor the chance in a million, the slot machine jolting, the yellow light flashing. Honor the voice that calls jackpot, and the coins that crush into the brushed steel tray. For there is a time for winning and a time for losing, And if you cast your bread upon the waters, you will find it again after many days. Pity the crowd around the blessed winner, all patting his back as if it rubs off this juice, this force, this whatever that might save them from their own cursed luck. And pity the poor winner whose hand claws back into his bucket of coins and who cannot walk away, because he'd do anything for the feeling he had when the great pattern rose from the chaos of cherries and lemons and diamonds and stars. And he knew for that moment he was blessed. We were talking about video game addiction over dinner. It's a version of the gambling addiction, I think. I was asked a few times today in different venues to talk about my writing process. Truth of the matter is I have a lot of writing processes. So I'm going to give you the simplest writing process I have for these short poems. I call them miniature Vedas. People say things to me, and I write them down. This one's called On Failure. She says, I think I could be anorexic. I just don't have the discipline. This one's called A Grim Tale with 2 M's, Grim Tale. Once upon a time, she loved him. Then she just fucking stopped. I come from Indiana, where people have gun racks in their trucks, and the typical bumper sticker is the government will be able to pry my gun out of my cold, dead hands. Okay, so this poem is called Bastards. Revenge on the road. Not worth it in gun country. The Kalahari Kung are a tribe in Africa. The Kalahari Kung only have sex every 5 years, she said. So don't tell me you need sex. Greek ruins. Looking up through the streets of Athens, the boy cries, "Look, you can see the apocalypse." Acropolis, right? This is a boy who called musicians magicians, by the way. In his dream, he sees an ancient Japanese knife, and on it written, "Death." Now that would be a hell of a knife to cook with. One good thing about divorce, she said, I get to stop being a character in your damn poems. Oh. Okay. That I think is a good seg into a book of divorce poems. And let's just try something a little bit random here. Someone shout out a number between 1 and 104. 17. 17 it is. This is sort of a novel in verse, sonnets, a novel in sonnets. A couple fall in love, they get together, they get married, they get divorced, go through the 12 steps of recovery. This is called Insect Wings. I've never read this one out loud. How interesting. It's that period where they're falling in love, they're getting together, and a little bit of danger is entering into the relationship, a little trouble. Inside his dream, he watches her face close like a blank envelope. She's opening him up, as easy as tearing a wing off a white flower. In this dream, who knows the way to read the ocean speaking in blue tongues, the apples ripe with a raw word? And who can understand the yellow sting of hornets, fumbling of the buses, weird trailers with open mouths? In the blue night, he gapes, a fish. But when he wakes, she's his again, though as she curls into his hip, he feels dream fingernails tear this from that, and with a certain cruelty looks at mosquitoes lashing wings against the net. Well, that's that poem. Interesting. 1 to 104. 54. 54 it is. Huh, okay. Driving poem. The Pits. He's driving past a sand pit, gravel pit, with metal cranes and piles and piles. Who knows what kind of thing the open crane mouth gnaws? Limestones, diamonds, what kind of pit is it? How the hell is he supposed to guess? He didn't know about the underneath, the tumor growing like a fetus, death below the skin, the way she loved him less because of something hidden, her mind full of dreams of other men. He sobs as wind picks up and beats the car and stains his shirt with tea. He swerves. This once was beautiful, he thinks. This pit, this gouge, this earthly wound, this pock, these rusting cranes, piles of raw dirt. One more, 1 to 104.
103.
3? Is that what I heard? 103. Oh, we're getting toward the end here. Okay, you asked for it. Nathan tells him he can't endure the grief. And so he gives in, goes on a blind date. He's always been the kind to dive right in. But look, don't bone her just because you can, says Nathan. Have respect. Respect yourself. Respect disease. It's plague time out there now. So he buys wine, Italian cheeses, raspberries, and when she comes by, they just talk, walk at their ease, and eat. Sure, it's like an interview, and sure, he blows it. When you date, do not go on about medieval empires. But it's fine. He doesn't want a wedding vow. He doesn't want to sleep with her tonight, does he? As Nathan says, don't be a slut. That's enough for that book. I have, we were talking about this in the classes earlier. I'm doing a project based on the tarot, where I'm working from the tarot deck and working with an artist named Alexandra Eldridge, who is making original paintings based on the tarot. And on the back, I'm putting a double sonnet, eventually to be published as a book of poems, as a deck of cards, which will then be used in creative writing workshops. So I'm going to read you one called The Fool. As you know, the Fool is walking along very happily at the edge of a cliff. He doesn't realize he's about to fall off the cliff, and so on. Off the coast of Ireland, near Galway, is a place called the Aran Islands, where they have very famous fishermen and where they speak Gaelic. And I guess that's all you need to know about it. I'm going to read it to you now. It's called The Fool. The way she broke the pomegranate heart. The way she sucked the bloody juice with passion. Her way of leaving men for men to start again might teach a wise man caution, but caution's not my passion. Passion is. And I don't have to tell you how she left. At least the man she dropped me for got his bad ending too. Bastard. So much for theft. Next topic, Irish fishermen. They live on water, but despite the ocean state, despite the moody wilding of its blues, the Aran Islands fishermen refuse to learn to swim. They say, it will tempt fate. It's almost a philosophy of love. It's true. And they can identify the fishermen when they wash up drowned because they have very distinctive hand-sewn sweaters. So even after the fish have eaten your face away, they can tell who you were by the sweater. Another poem or two, and I think we're going to shift into music. Yeah? I'm just going to read two short poems. One is, yeah, that's probably good. One is called Vermont Ghost Song. You know, kids have fears. I had lots of fears when I was a kid. I was afraid of the dark, I was afraid of sharks, afraid of snakes. Yeah. Oh, I was also afraid of this old oak tree that was outside of our house in Vermont when I was growing up. It was a hollow oak tree, and when the wind blew through it, it would just moan like one of those old, you know, Disney monster trees, you know, coming alive. So this is called Vermont Ghost Song. The great oak hollow as a throat, emits the darkest sound when wind unwinds invisibly, a strange note that summons nothing in the mind in a black rush of wings. Toes grip the earth and scrabble after what? The fingers whisk the air and sift what's there and something that is not. And in the morning, when the child passes by and spies the hole that mouths his fears, he ducks the wild hands grasping at him like a troll's. Where are they now? The boy, the meadow of poisoned parsnip like yellow flames that left such blisters? In the shadow of memory, they lose their names until some spectral dreaming swirls, until a dark wind ghosts through me, a black eye cracks, a wing unfurls, and nothing whirls out from the tree. Kind of a nightmare poem. And after nightmare, how about God? I'm not sure I have any wisdom about God, but I had this idea, somewhat of a science fiction idea, Platonic or Spinoza-like idea, when I was a teenager that appealed to me, and I keep on thinking about it, which is the idea that maybe God is not an intelligent creature, but a creature trying to achieve consciousness, and it does that through us. So when we make love, God makes love to itself and understands itself better. When we communicate, God communicates. When we speak, God speaks. So that was my idea. And the only other thing you need to know is I live 12 blocks from the beach on California Street, California and 12th. And this is called The Empty Apartment. Sometimes I think that people are the fingers of God, like the blind ocean touching land. And life's a braille that I won't understand if I'm not touching you. And we're not singers kissing a song out of our mouths in bed. Tonight, I fumble keys in darkness by my door and try to feel my way inside to cook alone and watch TV. Instead, I walk down California to the seething blackness out there beyond the glowing beach and stand a long time listening to each wave heave, the ocean like the planet breathing. It's done with raging, windily and wild. Tonight it whispers, shush. It whispers, child. John and Aria, want to come up? Ariana? Thank you, guys. This is, and now for the musical interlude. I have been deeply honored to have had the chance to work with John Clinebell and Ariana Hall in the process of turning my book of poems, Tongue of War, from Pearl Harbor to Nagasaki, which a number of you guys have read for different classes, which is a book based on 15 years of research into the war in the Pacific. I say from Pearl Harbor to Nagasaki, but really it goes from the rape of Nanjing prior to Pearl Harbor to the post-war period. But really it just deals with the war in the Pacific. And what I've done is create a number of oral histories that try to deal with this very difficult war, which had horrific war crimes, the dropping of the atom bomb, live medical experiments, torture, all kinds of mass rape of women across Asia to comfort women. All these very, very difficult things to deal with, and trying to look at them from multiple points of view, from the point of view of perpetrators and victims and others, so that you could take your own path through this journey, this ethical journey, and see what resonates with you. I tried as much as possible to remove myself from the process and let these people speak for themselves. So, like we weren't American at all. This is based upon the poem, The Battle for Saipan, and it has to do, it's from the point of view of a Japanese-American soldier in the military intelligence service on the island of Saipan in the Mariana Islands, 1944. Those of you guys who know your World War II history might know that the Japanese told the civilians in Saipan that the Americans were so horrible that the Americans would rape the women and torture the men, even cannibalize them, that it was much preferable to kill yourself than to allow yourself to be captured by the Americans. And so that was in fact the case. Many, many civilians threw themselves off of the suicide cliffs. As the poem and the song mentioned, women would hold their babies in their arms and leap off the cliffs with their babies in their arms rather than allow themselves to be captured by Americans. In the meantime, although the Japanese Americans who were put in the internment camps were treated badly, their homes and their property were taken away from them and their rights, they were given the opportunity the men to sign up for the military. And you probably know that the Fighting 442nd is the most decorated unit of any that fought in North Africa and Europe. They weren't allowed to fight in the Pacific Theater, but they were allowed to be intelligence officers. And that's the point of view of this person who was an interpreter who tried to keep people from jumping off the cliffs by shouting at them on loudspeaker that we're not going to hurt you, please don't do this. And that's all I'll tell you. I'll read the poem now. The Battle for Saipan. They served us steak for breakfast. Then I saw against the sky the slender island palms erupt in the bombardment, ripped apart. We shimmied down from the ship's deck at dawn on long rope ladders into landing craft that pitched and ran aground on coral reefs. Machine gun fire and phosphorus shell blasts hit us wading chest deep to the beach. And the Japs had set up trenches and tank traps. And to get our range, they'd placed tall bamboo poles at intervals. They cut us up. At last, we made a beachhead, ducked into foxholes. Once inland, it was like a firing range, a butcher's shop of torn up men, the air alive with cries, the spent shell casings, strange, sugary blood smell, white dust everywhere. We took that island, but the worst of it was the civilians who feared our men like death. Hundreds of them dove right off the cliffs. Mothers, weeping, held their kids and leapt. I was in intelligence. I spoke Japanese, and though I called to them on loudspeaker, "We won't harm you, don't jump, surrender, please," they thought it was a trick and embraced the air. They served us steak for breakfast, some fresh flesh red on the metal plate. That's what you get before they send you rushing at your death. Tough steak. I ate it, killed, and lived. And yet, back home, they took our grocery store and land. And though I signed up, shipped out, fought like hell, back home, they put my family into camps, as if we weren't American at all.
Inland was a firing range, alive with cries of the deranged. Smell of blood flows through the air, white powder everywhere. I grew up an American, though my folks were Japanese. And I signed up, shipped overseas. Back home they took our land. Back home they took our store. My family in a camp. What am I fighting for? I left my family home while answering the call. diving off the cliffs. How they feared our men like death. Mothers held their kids and leapt. I grew up an American, though I'm not as white as some. No longer sure where I'm from. Back home they took our land. Back home they took our store. My family in a camp. What am I fighting for? I left my family home while answering the call. Was treated like we weren't American at all. Back home they took our land. Back home they took our store. My family in a camp. What am I fighting for? I left my family home while answering the call. We're treated like we weren't American at all.
You can clap. This is a poem that's based upon trial transcripts, oral histories, and histories about the plight of the Japanese soldiers in New Guinea and in the Philippines from about 1942 to 44, when the supply lines were cut off and they simply had no food to eat. Now, we usually think of ourselves as good people, I would imagine. And most of us probably think that in all circumstances we would make the right choice. We would probably never eat human flesh, right? But imagine you're in this situation. You are in the field, in the army, and there is no food and you're starving to death. You have three choices. You starve to death painfully. You do what a lot of Japanese soldiers did, which is to gather around a hand grenade and blow yourself to pieces, mass suicide. Or you deal with the fact that all around you in the field is flesh, fresh flesh from the recent dead, and you eat. A lot of people made the choice to stay alive at any cost, and this is one of them talking, Japanese soldier from New Guinea. The only thing you need to know is that the term white pig refers to those Western soldiers they caught and ate, and dark pig refers to those from New Guinea whom they caught and ate. I didn't rape the women, didn't lust for their dark flesh, not like you think. I dreamed of food, not sex. A man does what he must to live. I ate dark breasts and brains, and it seemed normal, almost. I met some soldiers near the camp. They carried a cooked human arm from a white pig, that is, a prisoner from the West, and they were lucky with a farm of endless white pigs to roast up. But we had to track down the dark ones hiding, and we starved. At last, we drew lots, and the one who lost, we'd eat. The loser tried to flee. He'd been my friend. I shot him with my gun, then wept. I got his leg and his left hand.
starving, you'll eat what you must. Didn't look at women feeling lust, so their bodies not like you think. There's meat to eat and blood to drink. All night I heard the wounded cry. For love of God, now don't you let me die. And in the morning we ate our fill like animals around to kill. Flesh into flesh, blood into wine. I ate till I was full. All men are cannibals in war.
The next poem is called Hospital Tent. It's from the point of view of a U.S. Navy nurse in the Philippines in 1942. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just read it. Hospital tent. I looked around the scene and saw the men, some dead, some twisting on the tables. Smell of antiseptic, smell of blood. And then I looked outside where more waited. I tell you, I knew nothing of the Philippines, of mangoes, houses on stilts, nipa huts, the smell of copra in the air, gangrene and amputations, lice, the surgeon's cuts I had to sew back up, of caribou, the glisten of the small steel instruments catching the glint of lantern light, red pile of gauze. But still, I never cried, until one day when, I didn't see how, my hand was grabbed as I passed by intent by a young man who gave me half a smile and held me with his hands and eyes, then died.
La 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 I was a young girl, never had left Kansas until I had to wrap them up in canvas. See, I knew nothing of the Philippines till I woke up in this red dream.
cry.
I saw the young man twisting on the tables.
I swear that I did all I was able.
Antiseptic stink of gangrene.
The soldiers weeping in their dreams. I saw it all. I saw them die. Saw it all, but had no time to cry.
As they grew
Cold,
I closed their eyes.
through it all, had no time to cry.
I saw it all. I saw them die.
Saw it all, had no time to cry.
As they grew
Cold,
I closed their eyes.
and through it all, had no time to cry. La 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 la
The next poem is called Fireflies over Tokyo. This is an interesting one. I think it's the first two you guys wrote together, called Tokyo Burning. And it's about the firebombing of Tokyo, which maybe not a lot of young Americans know a lot about. We know about the atom bomb drop on Hiroshima and the atom bomb drop on Nagasaki. But in the firebombing of Tokyo, first they came in with, and they dropped metal bombs to smash the houses to kindling, and then they came in with napalm, and they set it all on fire into a firestorm that would feed on itself. And in that firestorm, 100,000 people burned to death alive. More than died in Nagasaki, about as many as died in Hiroshima. And it was part of a campaign of firebombing across Japan, and of course across Europe as well. And to batter the country into submission through this war against civilians. So we were talking about this over dinner, that really what the atom bomb did was simply do the same thing with one bomb. That's why we tend to think about it more. But it wasn't the first thing that happened. We were already going down that slippery slope towards the massacre of tens of thousands, 100,000 civilians. So these two poems, one is from the point of view of the gunner looking down from one of these airplanes that's dropping the napalm at the city, and the other is from the point of view of a housewife looking up and seeing the planes flying overhead with the reflection of the burning city streaming on the underside of the wings. And one of the interesting things in reading these oral histories is that in something that's sort of quintessentially Japanese, that even in the midst of this horror, a number of the people who were interviewed about this and about other horrific events in such as Hiroshima and Nagasaki talked about the weird beauty of it, about the aesthetic. This one that's particularly based on oral history is saying, you know, I was running through the streets from the flames, and I looked up and I saw that streaming light on the bottom of the wings. And my mother said, rather, and she stopped and said, "How beautiful." She said, "Sugoi, how beautiful." Wow, how wonderful. So These two poems face each other, the looking down and looking up. In a sense, it's the essence of the book, really. The question of looking at the same event from different perspectives. And what they've done, and quite beautifully, I think, is interwoven those two perspectives into one song. So I'll just read the poem, Fireflies Over Tokyo. This is from the point of view of the housewife. We heard the sirens screech, and then the sky turned bleeding, awful red. Some kind of bombs shattered the houses. Then, like fireflies, the spinning oil sticks dropped. It was napalm. We fled as flames splashed out from the windows, ran from flames that ate the oxygen, ran through the streets as fire stuck to our clothes. A man fell underfoot, was trampled. No one knew where we should run among the roasted dead. Some people jumped in the Sumida River, and though we saw them cook alive like herrings, how beautiful, my mother said, as silver needles unstitched the sky with liquid red reflections streaming underneath their wings.
I was a man who flew above Japan and watched the napalm fall. We sure tried from up there in the sky. Wish we'd killed them all. Wish we'd killed them all.
Out of the sky, the napalm fell like fireflies, and the world turned bleeding red. Smoke burned my nose, and fire stuck to my clothes. I ran off among the dead.
Looking down, there's nowhere to run. I'm in the plane,
I'm in the flame.
Tokyo's burning like the sun. Tokyo's burning like the sun. In magic glass, where time doesn't pass, I'm shooting everything.
Fire everywhere, ate our clothes and hair.
Far below their wings,
I'm on the ground.
looking down,
So we're just finishing up being in the studio. We'll be mixing and mastering in about 2 weeks. And the album will be out in about a month. And we've been passing out these pre-order forms for anybody who's interested. We have some more up here for those who might want to have the album. Beyond that, if you do pre-order the album, you help us put out the album because that gives us the money to actually produce it, so it'd be nice. So here we go. This is called A Black Rain Fell. It's from a whole series of poems about it's actually from the first sequence of poems I wrote after, as Jennifer was saying, the dinner I had with Paul Tibbets. I decided, having got Paul Tibbets' perspective on the dropping of the atom bomb in Hiroshima, and his perspective was, as in his words, in total war, everyone is guilty, even babes in arms and women, and they all deserve to die. They're all part of the war effort. So that was his point of view. And so I began to think, well, what would somebody else say? What would a victim on the ground at Hiroshima say? And I read a book called Children of Hiroshima, and I read another book, which was a memoir of a doctor who survived the atom bomb drop. And I began to read around. I got many, many oral histories from different points of view, from the point of view of Americans looking at the bomb, who were like women on the home front working in factories, sort of the Rosie the Riveter figures, Americans who were released from Japanese prison camps because the war ended, and they were about dead at that point. They're about 80 pounds in weight, after starving so long. So many different perspectives on the dropping of the bomb. This one's from the point of view of a weatherman in Hiroshima in 1945. The song is partly based on this poem, but based on about 2 or 3 other poems as well. You'll hear some of this language here, but it won't be as close as some of these other songs were because we're collapsing quite a few poems together into the one song. A Black Rain Fell. First, and I'll just say one thing before I read. This will be our last poem and last song. And once again, I thank you guys for braving LA traffic to come out and make the trip with us. Yeah.
Really glad to come out here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chapman.
It's a pleasure to be here. If you'd like to see this music be put into a CD, we're like about less than $1,000 away from having it all. So if everyone donates just a few bucks on our Kickstarter, it helps a lot. Thank you so much.
A black rain fell. First came the flare. Then it was strange. I saw blue morning glories bloom across the sky. Blue clouds. Next came the heat wave. So hot, the room was like a fever. Something snapped. I don't know what. Maybe the air expanding cracked the walls. The path outside was filled with people, bare and silent, running from the flames. The city was half dark with smoke, and half was clear and light. Black rain was falling. Like wet tar, it stuck to everything, to leaves and trees, and couldn't be washed off. It stuck to skin and clothes and hands and feet. It stuck, and everything turned black.
A blue flash hit. A train derailed. And I flew through the window in a gale. And everything looks strange to me. The world was crushed as far as I could see. And a black rain fell. A cold black rain, and it covered everything, and it wouldn't wash away.
read how people screamed, and all that I could do was fall to my knees as a black rain fell, cold black rain covered everything, and it wouldn't wash away. I kept hoping I was dreaming, Hiroshima was burning. Black rain fell, cold black rain covered everything, and it wouldn't